Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Make Me Whole podcast. I'm your host, Josette Rosado, and today we have a special guest, Melissa Rohlfs, who is a holistic health and wellness life coach. Melissa, thank you so much for being here. It is my passion this season to talk about all things health and wellness, as I usually do, but I'm inviting so many people who are in the same field, who are doing things with their own season and spin on it. I'm so glad that you're here. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and I love to talk about this. So this is awesome. As you said, I'm a holistic health and life coach and I help teen girls and women find freedom from the struggle with food because part of my journey was using food to cope and to self-medicate and to make myself feel better. And it just kind of became a really unhealthy habit that developed out of a time of trauma and not knowing what to do. So that's why I'm here and doing what I do.
That's a big group to work with, especially teenagers, because we're hearing so much about teenagers and how their perception of being big girls and big adults with all these different TikTok videos about the 10-year-olds in Sephora and just growing up too fast and trying to be, I guess we've heard that for a long time, right? Teens always trying to get ahead of what their maturity is all about. So that's an important role to take on. What set you in that direction? What got you going working with that population?
Yeah, well, really, it was my own journey and my own struggles. And, I originally started out with working with moms, still do, but I had a couple moms come to me and say, "Hey, do you think you could help my teenage girl?" And I'm like, "Well, I've never coached teenage girls before, but I'm willing to try. I do have a background in working with college students." So it transferred pretty well. So started working with high schoolers, specifically seniors who were going into college, and really liked that age group, really felt like part of the reason I wanted to work with moms initially was so they could help their daughters and kind of have like a bigger reach, but that wasn't necessarily transferring. So now it's kind of like, okay, I'm going backdoor and I'm reaching the girls so that they can reach their moms. So that's a little bit of how it just landed in my lap.
Yeah, that's important, especially that age range, because there is so many questions as to what's next. What do I do? Kind of like I'm no longer the little kid and I'm supposed to be this big old adult. What do I do? How do I get there? What do you find is the biggest challenge with the group that you work with now?
I hate to say it, but I believe it's anxiety. I heard a quote yesterday that the teenagers today have the same amount of anxiety that patients in the psychiatric wards in the 1950s had. And I would believe that to be true just because of the influence of social media. They've got the pressure of school and relationship, and maybe some are in extracurriculars or sports, and they have all of this pressure. And I think with these lovely devices, they have so much coming at them and they don't ever get a break. They don't ever get to kind of be off. We're constantly in fight or flight. And I just don't think it's the best thing for them, for any of us, but for them especially.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember all of growing up as a teenager, and if the phone rang, everybody jumped up and who's gonna get that phone call? But it was one phone on the wall. You didn't know who it was, and it was just that anticipation. If it wasn't for you, you moved on with your life. Now kids are going to their bedrooms and their phones are right there, accessible to them. The internet is so accessible to them. And I think you're right. There is too much at hand sometimes. How do parents navigate with that? How do they help their teens with this level of anxiety? Because that's significant.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is. And I think the big piece for me and just for my own journey is the importance of food on that. Like food plays such an important part. I think we only associate it with weight, Josette, but there is so much more that food does for our overall health, including anxiety. And so, look at what your child is eating. Look at what they're eating. Are there foods that are causing anxiety? Sugar is one. I believe that for some people, gluten can do that. Dairy can do that. There are certain foods that are going to trigger us because we were never intended to eat these preservative laden things that aren't really food. Let's just be really honest. We were designed
Absolutely.
to eat whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, meat, things in its natural form, but we've deviated so far from that. So I think part of it is looking at food and what your child is consuming. I think that's a part of it. I think the other part is monitoring their devices. You know, who are they connecting with? What are they taking in? Because that's also a part of your diet, is what you take into your mind, just like you do your body. So I think just being mindful and having conversations about what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, what's coming to them, maybe installing some monitoring if you feel like you need to do that, we do that. Just I think it's kind of being one step ahead of them in a lot of areas: food, social, making sure they're getting enough sleep. Sleep affects anxiety and mood and overall health, and basics of health that we, I think, as a society shied away from.
I think it's a good plan. And I wonder if you struggle as I have with some of the parents that I work with, where depending on a generation, whatever generation you're from. So with my Gen Xers or my Gen Zers, they're coming from their times of feeling deprived or feeling like there was so much monitoring or so much neglect during their upbringing that they allow their children to indulge because they want to be sure that they get everything that they want without the neglect, without the limiting. And so then here we are, allowing them to have unlimited talk, text, and, where I was explaining to my 15-year-old about a week ago about free nights and weekends, and she could not believe that that even existed. She was like, "What? You had to wait till 9 o'clock to talk on the phone?" I'm like, "Yeah, or else you were paying so much money to talk to your friends at night." So I think I wonder, how do you deal with parents who struggle with the idea that I was limited, so I don't want my child to suffer through that?
I don't see that so much with the social media and the technology. What I see that with is the food, right? Like so many of the women that I work with, they have done diet after diet after diet, and they are
Oh, yeah.
deprived and they are done withholding. And so they're just going to let their kids indulge in whatever. Neither end of the spectrum is good. I think we need to find that sweet spot for all of us, and that's going to be different. But I think it's, asking the parent, what kind of experience do you want your child to have? Like, what do you want them to learn? What do you want them to get out of this? Because whatever we do, we're teaching them something. More is caught than taught. So I think it's just important to like start with that envision of what is my goal? What do I want for my family, for my child? And then make sure you're putting steps in place to make that happen.
I think it's also important for parents to know that no matter what, teens need structure.
Yes.
And even if it's just a skeletal structure, they need structure, and they may not want it or say I want it out loud, but they need it in order to
Mhm.
kind of build whoever it is that they're going to become. So it's okay to be the bad guy is my favorite thing to tell them. It's
Yes.
okay to be a bad guy, wear your crown. Like, it's going to be all right. At the end of this, they'll come back, not right now, but at some point come back and say, hey, thanks for doing that. Do you often find that you're you have like certain techniques that you work with your families that are the ones that stick, the ones that seem to be most effective?
I think the main thing for the people that I work with is giving them a safe space to really share how they feel without judgment. Because a lot of times, if we post on social, we know that we're going to get judged. Or if we even maybe share with some close friends or family, like I think everybody
Yeah.
needs a safe container where they can share their feelings without being judged. And then that gives us permission to get more comfortable sharing our feelings and maybe not some of those safe places. Because I think really we all have something going on inside and we just need to get it out in a safe place, whether that's with a friend, with a therapist, with a coach, whoever that may be. Like, I think it's just providing that safe space and giving people that container without judgment to share what they feel. Because if you have that, you're not likely to let those things control you, consume you. For me, it was pushing them down with food. Some people, it might be devices or shopping or alcohol or whatever that might be, but it's just really
Right.
getting out whatever is bothering you and having that place to share.
I think one of the important reasons, one of the big reasons I wanted to have you here was because a lot of times parents often run to the therapist or run to the psychiatrist when they have issues that pertain to their kids. And so I like the idea of even considering life coaching when it comes
Mm.
to working with problems with their children or their teenagers. What would you say is the biggest difference between traditional therapy and life coaching when it comes to these kinds of issues?
Yeah, this is a really great question. And I love it because I think therapy and coaching work so well together. I think therapy is really focusing on the past and working through that. And so it really focuses on that piece so you can show up whole. And then I think coaching takes you where you are to where you want to go. So I have a client I worked with who had done therapy, and we started working together in the coaching aspect as she was doing therapy. And she made so much amazing progress because she had healed and worked through some of these hurts and these traumas and these things she'd experienced. So she came into coaching in a posture where she was ready to go forward. And it just was so beautiful because they were working on the past, we were working on the present and the future, and it just really set her up for success.
I think that's the biggest takeaway I want listeners to have, that the coaching aspect or any additional kinds of services that you can add to your therapy is it's welcomed. I mean, bring it in. It doesn't just have to be, the therapy portion. It's not that your therapist is going to be like, oh my gosh, like you're totally insulting the process. I can't believe you brought in a life coach. Like anything that you can add to your wellness journey is just going to enhance it that much more, and even could help speed up the process depending. So that's always a
Absolutely.
good thing. That's always a good thing. What lights your fire about mental wellness? What gets you going?
I think just people knowing they can change. Like, I know for me, I felt so stuck and so like, oh my gosh, this is my life. This is always going to be this way. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be frustrated. Wah, wah, wah. Like, I didn't know that I had what I needed within me to change. And so I think just letting people know that you have the ability to change. Like, you don't have to stay this way forever. Like, that is just so exciting because you really can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also it's important for people to know that it's not it doesn't necessarily have to be the person who you're working with. It's really the work that they do and them taking the initiative to be intentional about the change that they want to make. That's
100%.
exactly it. Any concerns you have about the direction that kids are going in right now or teenagers are going in right now, and what you feel like would be the best way for parents to kind of navigate those changes?
I think the anxiety piece is troubling. I think the social media piece is troubling. I think the biggest thing that teenagers need is they need somebody to come alongside them and believe in them and agree with them. And sometimes it's a parent, and sometimes it's a coach, and sometimes it's a teacher. Like, I feel like for me right now with our kids, I love seeing all these people in their lives around them that are giving them that belief and that encouragement and that support, because I can say something, but I'm the mom. What do I know? When they hear
Yeah,
it from, the teacher at school or the other friend's mom, like it gives a little bit more credibility. So I think really just surround your kids with a positive support system of people that will pour into them, will believe in them, will hear them, because I think a lot of times as parents we're quick to kind of dismiss what our kids say. Oh, I don't believe you, or oh that. And no, like, kids are really forthright and they will really tell the truth, and they will often like be a little bit more honest than we want them to be sometimes. So I think really
absolutely.
just listening to them and validating them is super powerful.
Yeah, and also noting that I know that there are some parents who struggle with the idea that these emotions are real, that this
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is real, and before they think that their child is really suffering from anxiety or depression, they'll blame seven different entities. Oh, it's because they stayed home and did virtual school for a long time, or, people are just softening up and they're not hard enough. And it's like, okay, that may be what your opinion is, but right now let's stay focused on what's going on for your child. Um, What would be your advice to a parent who is noticing changes in their own child or noticing that they're more anxious than usual?
I think get really curious. I think it's so easy for us to do like the parenting, like swoop in, like, oh my gosh, you seem anxious. What's wrong? What's happening? Did it? And just we like hover and like that's not really helpful. That just adds to it, I think. So just, have a conversation. Hey, I'm noticing some things. Is there anything going on? Is there anything you want to tell me? If they won't open up to you, find somebody that they will. Because I just was talking to a coach earlier today who had a client she was working with where the mom was noticing some things. And the mom was like, I know something's up, but I don't know what it is. So if you could find out, like find somebody who can find out what's going on. And maybe that's their friend and you're reading their text. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes that's how it works.
Goodness, it's true that sometimes and also just having that supportive network. I think,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, having those other adults or
Yeah.
trusted friends who can be there to help as I call it the tribe. You know, you need a tribe around you of people who are going to support you in this parenting journey. Because if we think it's difficult when they're young, it doesn't get easier and it doesn't stop. This is just something that it not, I mean, it's well rewarding, but it just doesn't stop. We never stop being parents. All right. If people wanted to find you, where would they find you, Melissa? Tell us where you're coming from, where you are, where they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. My website is free, the number two, the letter B coaching.com. So freetobecoaching.com. From there, you can find my Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all the places on social that I post.
Great. And we'll be sure to post all of that on our description. I want to thank you so much for just taking some time to talk to us about this. I think it's such an important topic, and I can see that you really are proud of the work that you do. And I hope you keep doing it because we need you.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening today, for being here, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care. Bye.